Boy, did anything happen over the weekend? I have to wonder because it doesn't seem like it. Oh, wait. Here's something for you. Joe Biden comes out with a speech that is laden with gaffes and even seems to read the teleprompter. Repeat the line. In other news, Hunter Biden's emails have supposedly been cracked. His laptop, 4chan has found a way to get into a password. We'll be talking about some of the stuff that appears to be discovered on there, and what this means, and where this goes, and what we do from there. A series of protesters find Brett Kavanaugh in a restaurant and decide to go back and protest him, and the White House tacitly endorses it. Shocker there. So we'll talk just a bit about what's happening with that. And the Wisconsin Supreme Court has looked up and said, yes, drop boxes, are illegal. So we'll talk just a bit about what's happening with that. It is going to be all this and more. Welcome to midterm season. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. So, we gotta talk, guys. I don't know how you guys listen to me. I'm glad you do. Don't get me wrong. I'm very glad you guys come in here today, but I went back and listened to... I was sharing out an episode of Contemporary with a friend and listening to it for myself, and I can't stand to hear my own voice, that's genetic. Most people can't. So I don't typically go back and listen to the live stream of myself afterwards, but my microphone is going bad. As it didn't used to sound like it did, or it does now. So we'll be getting a new microphone coming up here in the near future. If anybody wants to throw something via PayPal. By the way, I will be disabling my Buy Me a Coffee because they have put so many hoops into getting your money out of Buy Me a Coffee. It's ridiculous. It is completely 100% ridiculous. They don't use PayPal anymore. I found that out in July. Well, this is July, isn't it? Yeah, when I went to I went to go pull the money back out because you guys were very generous off of that. And, well, you have to hit a certain amount and you have to use this payment processor because PayPal doesn't go with us anymore. I don't understand why I do understand why they make it so hard to make money on the internet right now because the elites don't want us to be out there out competing them. But, man, I don't understand why they have to make it so unbelievably hard to make money off the internet with something that you guys clearly enjoy and you clearly want to support. So as of right now, the PayPal is the only option that we have. Otherwise, you can go support on Twitch as well. That's always appreciated, going and supporting on Twitch because, well, and as I said before we got started, I'm working on right now adjusting and doing up some new emotes for you guys because if you guys are either going to pay or hit the Prime subscription, you get a free one every month. Remember, if you have Amazon Prime, you do get a free subscription every month. If you guys are going to use that, if you guys are going to actually pay into one, I want you guys to have something to show for it. And yeah, if you pay in on the lowest tier in a month, you'll get a certain set of emotes. If you go into the next highest tier, you'll get another set of emotes. And if you go into the higher tier than that, you will get a spicy set of emotes. I will be pushing the line. I mean, hell, if somebody's going to pay me $25 a month to listen to me talk about this, I'm going to be having a lot better microphone. I'm going to tell you that right now because I heard that over the weekend. I'm like, yeah, we need to buy a new one of those. But yeah, if you're going to be paying me $25 a month, you deserve the spiciest emotes that Jeff Bezos will allow on the platform. So we're working on that. We're working on doing things to improve things. Every once in a while, you got to get over your fear of wanting to hear your own or hating to hear your own voice and just suck it up and do that and see where we go. No, I do not have Cash App and Venmo. But that is what we see coming off of that. And there we go. Let's get into this and let's get started on what we have going on today. But before we do, make sure you guys go check out the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Breckenhoff, the R-Rated Conservative, the Porch Boys, and more. We'll be doing more stuff with KTZed. We'll be working more with Brit, and we are working on getting the website launched. That's the other side of that, is we are working on getting the website launched, which at some point in the near future, the name reveal is going to have to come out here, and we're going to have to see what's going on with that, because of course, Give, Set, and Go. Well, you can't use our site unless you put your first and last name on it. Well, I haven't used my first name in 13 years. I mean, people are going to look at this fundraiser and say, "Oh, J. Edgar. Oh, who's this Joseph guy? What the French?" But we'll figure that out. We'll go with that. But yeah, go check out all those guys. They are great friends to Liberty. Go follow them all on all the other platforms, and let's get down into the news for the day. We are going to start with the Dow, as we always do here. Looking at the Dow. The Dow was a jump rope throughout the day on Friday, rather. Yesterday. You know, they were closed yesterday. Yesterday was Sunday. There was a pretty significant dip to start off the day, and then it jumped back up above the previous close. Then it fell off again, and then it did another big bounce off of there, ending the day at 31,384.55. That was down 46.4 points, or 0.15%. Day over day on the day. So that's what we see coming off of the Dow. Looking in at your Bitcoin. Let's get a refresh off of this, because these are last night's numbers. Looking at the 1 day, it kind of fell off, and it doing a little bit of a bounce there at the end again. But bringing it out to the 5 day and seeing what we did all the way over the weekend, it stayed steady throughout the weekend and started dipping and dropping once again. It is starting to look like, as we come into earnings season, that a lot of the investors out there are starting to look at this and say, hey, we might be getting out to a point where we can't sustain and we can't handle this anymore. So we will continue to watch this and see where this goes. We'll continue to watch and keep with the markets and hope your portfolios do well. Bitcoin is sitting at $20,538 US dollars and 10 US cents. So that's what we go at with that. Looking at the gas. What is that digit right after the dollar sign? What is that? Boy, we haven't seen that for a while, have we? But yes, the Madison area has dropped to $3.98. Some of the Saudi oil is starting to get in. And like I said at the start of this, with the Saudis wanting to come back out and turn everything back up and pump the oil back out because they were begged by the Biden admin to do so, a lot of these oil companies are trying to sell out the old stock so they can get new stock in at the lower price and get more gas in your cars. As I said before, when Biden tried to say, the greedy oil companies and the greedy gas stations. No, gas stations don't make crap off a gallon of gas. Their margins are so low because they're fighting with so many other people in their small towns. In the rare few occasions where it's the only place in town, it is always going to be a little bit higher. But when you're in a city somewhere and there are gas stations on every third corner, no, they have a lot of competition, and they try to price gouge there. You're just going to go out to their competition. I don't understand where people thought it was going to be the gas station. However, one of the things that I pointed out is that even with the margins and everybody competing against each other, either at the gas station or the refinery level, as they're sitting and competing with each other for the gasoline, from the refinery companies, the more gas you put in your car, the more money the gas companies make. If you have to sit and budget out every single drop of fuel you put in your vehicle, they're not making bupkis. So something to pay attention to as we go along with this, something to see where we go. And we will continue to watch the gas price as it falls. Let's see what IBD has to say for the morning. Investors Business Daily. Dow Futures market rally set to fall as China fears return. Elon Musk Twitter saga far from over. Yeah, when the market's open, we might actually skip over and go see what the Twitter stock is doing at the start, because I got a feeling that that's going to fall, and I have a feeling that is by design. So we'll see what happens with that and where that goes. Ed Carson, gives us this article. Dow futures fell early Monday, along with the S&P and the NASDAQ futures, with China crackdowns on COVID and tech firms in focus. The Twitter saga seems to head out for court after Elon Musk, CEO, moved to end his takeover. The stock market rally showed strength last week, while the Nasdaq leading the way, while more quality stocks flashed buy signals. The tech-heavy Nasdaq. I'm sorry. No, that is the Nasdaq. The tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite. They missed a word in there, and that throws me off all the time when they do that. By the way, finished Friday around its 10-week moving average and the 50-day line, where it struggled multiple times this year. The major indices decisively clearing these key levels would be a positive step, though the market rally would still face numerous challenges from technical resistance to the start of earnings season. Conversely, a sell-off from current levels would be a bearish signal. On the futures, this will be a short one for this one, because we'll be reading about the Elon stuff later on in the show. Almost all the way to the bottom, by the way, because we've got so much stuff happening in the presidency today. On the futures, Dow futures lost 0.5% versus fair value. The S&P sank 0.7%, and the Nasdaq fell 0.85%. Crude oil prices declined 2.5%. Copper futures fell more than 1%. So that's going to that's good. We're going to watch that. The copper futures. We're going to watch that because of stagflation, and if the manufacturing markets aren't doing anything, they don't need copper. The 10-year yield fell 5 points to 3.05, while the 2-year yield dipped 3 points to 3.07%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng sank 2.8% after China regulators fined Alibaba, Tencent, SoftBank, and other companies for failing to disclose certain takeovers. The 500,000 yuan fines are nominal but could unnerve investors. Meanwhile, Macau has shut casinos and other businesses in its bid to stop COVID spread. Macau-focused casinos and U.S.-listed Chinese stocks were notable losers early on Monday. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So, that's what we see coming up with that. Let's grab one briefly from Market Watch, talking about what happened. Oh, I guess I can't do Market Watch because somebody was really stupid and didn't archive this. All right. I think we've got to get into the main news of the day. Markets aren't open yet. I was about to jump over and see what the Twitter stock was doing, but let's start it out. So, over the weekend, Biden had a couple gaffes. Now, the less notable one, but the one to pay attention to because they're trying to cram the gun control agenda down your throat right now, has to do with Shinzo Abe. And I could sit back and read the transcript from Greg Price, but I want you to hear it from the man himself. Let us listen to the houseplant-in-chief.
The fact is that one thing did get my attention, that this is the first use of a weapon to murder someone in Japan. And I think we have thus far have 3,000, I won't hold me to the number, 688, between 3,000 and 4,000 cases. They've won.
Mr. President, that's, well, first off, don't hold me to the numbers, man. Math is hard. Don't make me do stuff. It's funny that joke has come back. I mean, we talked about that with Bush and Katrina. That was one of the probably greatest Seth MacFarlane jokes. Back when Seth MacFarlane was still funny, of course. When Brian Griffin went to go find George W. Bush after Katrina, and he was in the treehouse. Leave me alone! I'm reading Super Fudge! Mr. President, there's been a massive hurricane out there. Don't make me do stuff. Well, we've got another one just like that. Don't make me do stuff. Oh, we have between 3,000 and 688. Don't hold me to the... The worst part of this is he could have recovered from that. Let's listen to that one more time, and I'm going to point out where he could have recovered himself from that, especially when we look at the transcript that Price put up here.
The fact is that one thing did get my attention, that this is the first use of a weapon to murder someone in Japan. And I think we have thus far have 3,000, I won't hold me to the number, 688, between between 3 and 4,000. Between 3 and 4,000 cases. 88 or don't hold me to the number. 688 or thus far have 3,000. I won't hold me to the number. 688 or
I really think that if he hadn't put the don't hold me to the number and just said 3,688, and realistically, I almost think that that's what he was trying to do. Was he was trying to say 3,688. Well, wanted it out there to everybody to know that he's too stupid to know what the actual number is, or keep the note card in front of him. Between 3,000 and 4,000. But that's your primer, by the way. It's a childhood stutter. But that wasn't even the worst one. That's just me warming up the waters. The big news of the day was this one here. The Daily Wire reports. Let's listen to this one.
Power. It is noteworthy that the percentage of women who register to vote and cast a ballot is consistently higher than the percentage of the men who do so. End of quote. Repeat the line. Women are.
Let's listen to that again. And you know what? We don't usually do CCs, but we're going to do that this time.
To vote and cast a ballot is consistently higher than the percentage of the men who do so. End of quote. Repeat the line. Women are not without electoral and or political, or maybe precise, not and or political power. That's another way of saying that you, the women of America, can determine the outcome of this issue. I don't think the court, or for that matter, the Republicans, power. It is noteworthy that the percentage of women who register to vote and cast a ballot is consistently higher than the percentage of the men who do so. End of quote. Repeat the line. Women are.
Repeat the line. And this is not the first time that he's done this either, by the way. I know a lot of people are, it's Brett or meme. Our expectations for you were low, but holy F. This is actually not a big deal, but common for our elders. Yeah, it's called Alzheimer's. There's so many people that are here trying to gaslight you. Now, first and foremost, the big one for this is that we have two different narratives coming off with this, with the people that are coming out here. Like, one does, well, this is really not that big of a deal and common for our elders to read the teleprompter verbatim because they have no idea what they're actually coming out and saying. And of course, we've got what Trump? Tesla and Doge tweets out, how is this guy president? End of quote. Repeat the line. How is this guy president? Excited Pat's fan. How did the previous guy not get that he lost a free and fair election? The freest and fairest election in history, too, by the way. But we've got conflicting narratives off of that because, yes, these people are trying, oh, no, it's just fine. It's just old people do this all the time. Or we've got, from the Daily Wire, the White House stealth edits Biden's apparent teleprompter gaffe. Internet notices mockery ensues. From Greg Wilson. An apparent White House bid to clean up President Biden's latest gaffe with a stealthy transcript tweak is drawing widespread meme mockery. Biden on Friday railed about the Supreme Court's overturning of Roe v. Wade, reading from a teleprompter and calling the decision an exercise in raw power. But when he quoted the majority decision, he appeared to read instructions inserted by his speechwriter, which he does that all the time. And they try to gaslight us on it. All the time. Women are not without electoral or political power, man. Come on. It's noteworthy that the percentage of women who register to vote and cast a ballot is consistently higher than the percentage of men who do so. End of quote. Repeat the line. That drew plenty of virtual laughter Friday afternoon, but the Biden blooper had vanished by the time the official transcript of the speech came out. Yeah, they're trying to come. Let me repeat the line. No. That's not what we did. And people have been taking this clip and speeding it up and slowing it down and frame by framing it to show that there was no attempt to come back out and say, let me repeat the line, man, come on. After a wave of Twitter ridicule, White House Assistant Press Secretary Emily Simons, I don't have a fun nickname for that one yet, insisted Biden didn't actually read the teleprompter instruction. No, he said, let me repeat the line. Is this the same clip that we just watched?
Power.
That is the same clip we just watched. I mean, if you guys want to run it up one more time, we'll come back and listen to it one last time. Because I know our country is so excited to hear this man speak.
Power. It is noteworthy that the percentage of women who register to vote and cast a ballot is consistently higher than the percentage of the men who do so. End of quote. Repeat the line. Women are not without electoral. Repeat the line. Women are not consistently higher than the percentage of the men who do so. End of quote. Repeat the line. Women are not without electoral and or political or maybe precise, not and or.
And the worst part, I mean, you see him lean down like this, and like he does this all the time. Like he's trying to be a 50s tough guy. We've talked about this before, where he's, you know, if he'd have gone any further, it would have been, women are not without electoral power. Repeat the line. They're spitting in your face and telling you it's rain, tweeted popular YouTube lawyer Viva Fry, who recently moved to Canada from Canada to Florida. White House is modifying the transcript to pretend the president's obvious gaffe was intended to be part of the speech. It says, though they think the video doesn't exist, people will choose to believe the lie. Well, if the comment section is any indication, they're choosing to believe the line because they have to justify the fact that we had to vote for this guy because we had no better options. I don't know, Tulsi Gabbard was up on that stage. Well, Tulsi Gabbard's a Nazi! Yes, they're actually saying that. There were no better options on that stage and we had to defeat the evil orange man. Let's read one from The Blaze. After Biden reads, repeat the line from teleprompter, no one buys the excuse offered by White House spokesperson. And I believe... No, they didn't have the video of her. I thought they had the video of her. Yeah, that's Emily Simon. So they've got her tweet, but she's replying back to this. It says, no, he said, let me repeat the line. No, he didn't. That was actually probably the clearest, absolute clearest part of the speech that he has given since his presidency. So, that is what we see coming off of that. But one of the things to watch when we look at this is some of the questions that are going to try to come up off of this. Now, they're going to sit back and try to defend the president and say that he's with it and the best that he can so that we don't get situations where people lose faith in the presidency, and try to hold this up until he can come back and just bow out gracefully and say, I know I said I was going to run again, and for the election in February of 2021, but man, I'm just too tired, man. Age is too much for me. I'm telling you, man, I'm too old for this, and anybody else who's my age is too old for this. But when we see some of the stuff like this, we start to see even magazines like the New York Times, a former newspaper, coming out and telling us. So we'll read from that in just a second. But I do want to touch on this from the Daily Mail, talking about what the New York Times had to say. The New York Times again suggests Joe Biden, 79, is too old to run for re-election, and says he now shuffles with White House staffers, fearing he'll trip on a wire. From Natasha Anderson for DailyMail.com. Let's touch on this for just a second, but we will be going to the source material. The New York Times, a former newspaper, has once again suggested Biden may be too old to run for re-election in a piece that revealed the president now shuffles and staffers are fearful he may trip over wires. Biden, 79, has experienced a decline in energy levels, with some aides alleging he often shuffles while walking, prompting fears that he will trip on a wire. He also often stumbles over his words during public speaking events. Staffers told the left-leaning New York Times, a former newspaper, that they find themselves holding their breath during Biden's speaking engagements to see if he makes it to the end without a blunder. The Times has begun questioning Biden's fitness for office in recent months, a marked departure from its strident support for him in the run-up to the 2020 election. Let's be realistic, we know what was happening there. Saturday Story's headlined, at 79, Biden is testing the boundaries of age and the presidency, with the Times reporter Peter Barker writing that the president's age has increasingly become an uncomfortable issue for him, his team, and his party. Well, I'm going to push back on that and say that it's probably not an uncomfortable issue for him, because, I'm sorry, this dude has no idea what's going on. Zero. Baker also spoke to the Democratic strategists who are raising concerns that it is unwise for Biden to seek re-election for a White House term that he'll end when he is 86. Biden, the oldest ever U.S. president, has been under fire over his physical and mental fitness since before he took office. His presidency has seen several gaffes. How ironic is it that I say it on that phrase right there, too? Several gaffes during the event, including on Friday, when he appeared to read speaking directions off his teleprompter. Last month, he fell off his bike during a ride near his beach house in Delaware and then hopped around in an effort to prove that he wasn't injured in the accident. And then they swept that clone away and booted up the next clone, who can say, "Repeat the line!" The Times reported that staffers cringed over the coverage of the bike fall story received and said many insisted the president remained sharp and inquisitive. Let me repeat the line. The president remains sharp and inquisitive. Repeat the line. Aides allege Biden's health is a sensitive topic throughout the White House. However, more than a dozen current and former senior officials and advisors uniformly reported Biden is mentally engaged in his role as the president. They told the Times that he asked smart questions during the meeting. Hey! Fat, do you want to do a push-up contest? Grills his aides on points of dispute and helps them revise weak points in his speeches. No, he doesn't. This man does not revise points in his speeches.
The fact is that one thing did get my attention, that this is the first use of a weapon to murder someone in Japan. And I think we have thus far have 3,000, I won't hold me to the number, 688, between 3,000 and 4,000 cases. They've won.
That human being is not making his staffers revise points in the speech. I'm sorry. But they also noted how Biden appears to look older than he did in previous years, citing his declining energy levels and increased likelihood for tripping and falling. Well, to be fair, that's because he is older than he was in previous years. You don't go backwards in age. Falls and injuries caused by slipping are more common in adults over age 65, with many caused by the incorrect shifting of body weight. Very well health reported. So, yeah. There is that. But, you know, we'll see what happens with that. Let's actually see what the New York Times has to say. At 79, Biden is testing the boundaries of age and the presidency. From Peter Baker. When President Biden leaves Tuesday night for a 4-day swing through the Middle East, he'll presumably be more rested than he would have been had he followed the original plan. The trip was initially tacked onto another journey last month to Europe, which would have made for an arduous 10-day overseas trek, until it became clear to Mr. Biden's team that such an extended travel might be unnecessarily taxing for the 79-year-old president, or crazy, as one official put it. Okay. And nobody sees a problem with the fact that that statement in and of itself had to be issued. I swear, if it wasn't for the fact that the vast majority of people in the Democrat Party, and probably some of the Republicans, Liz Cheney, have their hands in the Hunter Biden cookie jar, I'm pretty sure that most people would have looked at this and said, Joe, are you serious? No, just go and retire. You had a good run. You got famous in the memes under the Biden the Obama admin, the O'Biden admin. O'Biden-Bama, if you will. Just go retire. There's no shame. Go back to Delaware. I mean, you're spending all your time there anyway. Aides also cited the political and diplomatic reasons to reorganize the extra stops as a separate trip weeks later on. But the reality is that managing the schedule of the oldest president in American history presents distinct challenges, and as Mr. Biden insists he plans to run for a second term, his age has increasingly become an uncomfortable issue for him, his team, and his party. Dude, he is not planning on running for president again. He is doing what he is told to do. And again, one of the problems with that is if he comes out and says, now, or even back in 2021, I can't run for re-election. I'm too old. The question's going to start coming up of, okay, why are you still in the presidency now? Step aside and let the least popular person in the primary race come in and take your term. Just a year and a half into his first term, Mr. Biden is already more than a year older than Reagan was at the end of 2 terms. If he mounts another campaign in 2024, Mr. Biden would be asking the country to elect a leader who would be 86 at the end of his tenure. Testing the outer boundaries of age and the presidency, polls show many Americans consider Mr. Biden too old, and some Democratic strategists do not think that he should run again. It is, unsurprisingly, a sensitive topic in the West Wing in interviews, some sanctioned by the White House, and some not. More than a dozen current and former senior officials and advisors uniformly reported that Mr. Biden remained intellectually engaged, asking smart questions at meetings, grilling aides on points of dispute, calling them late at night. Oh, there is a host of jokes that goes with that one. Oh, man. Oh, could I have fun with that. Oh. Picking on the weak point on page 14 of a memo and rewriting speeches like his abortion remarks on Friday, right up until the last minute. I can hear that call right now. Oh man, I can hear that call right now. Oh, hey, Max, you remember that time in '63? Oh, yeah, we went out to those neighborhoods out there. Yeah, we had some fun times there. What do you mean you weren't there? What do you mean you're only 29? I remember you there clear as day, man. Come on. But they acknowledge Mr. Biden looks older than a few years ago, a political liability that cannot be solved by traditional White House stratagems like staff shakeups or new communications plans. His energy level, while impressive for a man of his age. What energy level are you seeing? It is not what it was, and some aides quietly watch out for him. He often shuffles when he walks, and aides worry that he will trip on a wire. He stumbles over words during public events. Repeat the line. He stumbles over words during public events, and they hold their breath to see if he makes it to the end without a gaffe. End of quote. This is, again, by the way, it does look like they are trying to screw Trump, Hillary, Warren, Pelosi, and probably a host of others to make sure that they can't go back and run for this, because we'll all run up the same question. How old is too old? All right, let's keep going. Because there's more drama in the Biden family. Like, I've got this whole block up to here is just on Biden stuff. Before we even get into something else that doesn't have anything to do with Biden. From the New York Post, Hunter Biden reportedly called Jill an entitled... All right, guys who have their kids with the AM radio, earmuffs. Earmuffs, because this is a quote. Hunter Biden reportedly called Jill an entitled cunt in text. From Emily Crane. And from the headline, I'm not going to make you do earmuffs. Although I will dance around the rest of them. Hunter Biden called his stepmom, Jill Biden, a vindictive moron, an entitled C-word in text messages, after she urged him to go to rehab and kick his drug habit, according to a new report. President Biden's 52-year-old druggy son made the remarks in a string of text messages that he sent in 2018 as the family were rallying to get him help, the son reported. In one particular text sent by his brother Beau's widow, Haley Biden, who he was scandalously dating at the time, Hunter went off on the now First Lady. F my stepmother for always being so much of a selfish, silly, entitled C-word as you. He wrote to Haley as their brief relationship deteriorated. Oh, so it's not just that he said that about his stepmother, he said it about his girlfriend at the time, who was married previously before he died to his brother. You can just hear the banjos in something like this. He also admitted to calling stepmom a effing moron, a vindictive moron, in a separate text exchange with his uncle, James Biden, just days earlier. In the text to his uncle, who is President Biden's brother, obviously, Hunter said that he raged to Jill that he was smarter than her. I mean, I hate to say it, but that's not a high bar to clear. And do you know the drunkest I've ever been is still smarter than you could have ever even comprehend, and you're a shut grammar teacher that wouldn't survive one class in an Ivy graduate program, Hunter said in the text. Well, see, the thing with the Ivy Leagues is there's not a huge amount of actual material that goes on in there. I mean, if you've made it into the Ivy Leagues, whether it's because you have money or you actually have the intelligence to do so, it's basically just a networking program. Once you've gotten into the Ivy Leagues. If you're into the Ivy Leagues, it's a program to say, hey, I went to Harvard. I have connections. Open the door for me. So go F yourself, Jill. Let's all agree, I don't like you any more than you like me. Yeah, I bet Jill is kind of wishing that Joe had smothered this one with a pillow when he was a baby. In another text to his uncle, Hunter bemoaned that his father allegedly hadn't visited him during his prior rehab stints. Literally, he's never come to one, never actually called me while in rehab, Hunter wrote of his father, so that's a little insane. Well, if I remember from the time that you were in rehab, I think he was busy trying to be the vice president. The text messages were uncovered on an iPhone that was found backed up on Hunter's laptop from hell, the Sun reported. The revelations of the brutal messages emerged the same week Hunter was repeatedly photographed alongside his father and the First Lady in Washington. Oh yeah, I'm sure that the coaches in the White House have said, okay, Hunter, you and Jill have to get along, and if you can't, something's probably going to happen to you. But the other side of this, and this is what the New York Post is not telling you because, well, that will probably destroy your credibility because it's a right-wing, evil Nazi website, is that the majority of this is coming because allegedly, and I don't know enough about tech, security, etc., to actually look into this and do some of this myself, but allegedly, somebody on 4chan was able to crack the password on the laptop from hell and just started spilling documents onto 4chan. I cannot independently verify, of course, 4chan is not green check verified, although they get it right a lot more than the places that are green check verified. Oops, did I say that out loud? But there's the video that comes with this, the voicemails that they're leaving off of this. There's a host of other stuff, and again, one of the things to question when we look at something like this is, I mean, can you just hear the banjos off of this? Oh, stepmom, I hate you! Let me go and screw my brother's wife, or his widow. Let me go do that. I'm gonna buy a gun even though I'm out on papers and I got drug addiction. I mean, this doesn't get any better. And this is supposed to be the erudite, upstanding class of citizen, the Bidens are supposed to be this rich and powerful family. And I mean, this is the kind of stuff that you see on the Jerry Springer show. We've got some of the messages in here. I was going to say, I knew that there's probably a good reason that we came to this one. So we do have a couple of the messages here. Let's look at some of this. Hold on, Uncle Jim. You've been about as available as I have. I'm perfectly fine except for the fact that I'm going to have to declare bankruptcy or brought back into the court by Kathleen. Haley and my idiot stepmother have once again created drama that forces Dad into saying, go away for 30 days, and I'll help, but otherwise I don't really trust your judgment, Hunter. I've been away and sober and effing frantically trying to get enough money not to be dictated by a woman who has been sober for the first time in her life for a grand total of 3 months. She owes me $500,000, and I ask her for $3,000 down payment for a rehab just to literally I could get out of their insanity, and she says only if I go to Karen for 90 days will she lend me $3,000. The same day she bought a little Hunter a $1,700 pair of Gucci flip-flops. I kid you not. A $1,700 pair of Gucci flip-flops. That should be the headline right there. These are the people who want to rule over you and take your money. I kid you not, so don't be mad at me for not dragging you into this. I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at the fact I can't seem to close these deals. They're very real. Divorce them all. Come live with me in the immediate short term. We can play out these deals. Let's at least talk. Come here. I meet you any place you want. I'll call you in a bit, but I'm really doing you to calm the F down and stop telling Haley anything. Hat is the ducking panic. I'm totally completely OD sane mind and body, there's no drama. But what she creates, what's the effing challenge to create this panic? Nothing except me telling her that she is a C word. NS telling my mother she's a moron. Both are true things. So you retelling her I've only texted her so she can use you against me is less than helpful. And another one. And then we will watch Token Diversity Hire. F my stepmom, which in that family, that actually might not be an insult. That might be an offer to do. I mean, you can hear the banjos. For always being as much as a selfish, silly, entitled C word as you. Who else's life am I gone from? Only yours, thank God. I finally tell you, I'll do inpatient and you can't help but effing tell my mother and sister and Sissy and Kathy and whoever the hell you can that I'm once again a failure and a drunk addict. And then I ask you for $3,000 for the deposit and to drive me, and you won't unless I go to the only two places you know I won't go. What a ducking, awful, effing person you are. You're a broken record. I cannot wait to date someone who actually has a brain and a heart and loves me. Call your parents. You're a broken 45-year-old CUNY. Fine, call your parents. I've talked with my dad, you silly whore. Stay out of the family business. Okay, then I'll leave you alone. My stepmother's not involved, and neither are you. Leave me alone because I left you, Haley. Not because you're boring and tired, only because you're truly manipulative B-word. The detox is as a suite in the Soho Grand. I've got a Ukrainian hooker in my bed with me right now drinking Bloody Marys. WTF, you're joking, right? And someone sent me a note saying my sister and mother and Haley are not as stupid and vain as I think they are. They're actually clinically proven to not be human, but rodent. Well, that's not wrong. That deserves to be taunted with the fact that they will die alone. Huh? Can you send me money or not? Hunt, I hope this is all a joke. Oh, where's the banjo track when you need one? Alright, let's listen to Token Diversity Hire.
Why is there a voicemail of the president talking to his son about his overseas business dealings if the president has said he's never spoken to his son about his overseas business dealings?
Well, first I'll say that what the president said stands. So if that's what the president said, that is what stands. And
He's
secondly,
about a New York Times article concerning Hunter Biden's business dealings, and he says, "I think you're clear." How is that not him talking to his son about his overseas business dealings?
We're not, from this podium, I am not going to talk about alleged materials from the laptop.
So are you disputing the president's voice on the voicemail?
I am not going to talk about alleged materials on the laptop.
Are
It's
you
not
disputing
happening.
then that it is not?
Peter, I refer you to his son's representative.
Okay.
Good. Good, Peter.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about that. No, my notes here say that I'm not supposed to talk about any of this, so Peter, I'm sorry we can't talk about this here. Yes, I know the American public has questions about this, but my notes say not to talk about this. How did you get worse than red-haired bobblehead? Seriously. Let's grab one from Fox. And this is, of course, the Spider-Man pointing the fingers meme, but we'll touch on this for a second. ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, MSDNC ignore voicemail Joe Biden allegedly left Hunter Biden on business dealings. From Brian Flood, Nicholas Lanham of Fox News. The mainstream media has largely ignored a leaked voicemail President Biden purportedly left for his son Hunter about his overseas business dealings, maintaining that any materials that allegedly originated from his son's now infamous laptop would not be discussed. President Brandon has repeatedly denied discussing Hunter's business ventures with him, but on June 27th, the Daily Mail first published a bombshell voicemail that many feel contradicts that previous claim. Hey pal, it's Dad. It's 8:15 on Wednesday night. If you have a chance, give me a call. Nothing urgent, I just want to talk to you, Biden is heard saying in a voicemail from 2018. I thought the article released online, it's going to be printed tomorrow in the Times. It was good. I think you're clear, man. Come on. The article Biden was referring to was published by the New York Times, a former newspaper, in December of 2018, and reported a private meeting between the chairman of the now defunct Chinese energy company CEFC and Hunter at a Miami hotel in May of 2017. CNN, MSDNC, ABC, NBC, and CBS all ignored the story from June 27th through the morning of July 7th, according to a review of the transcripts conducted by Fox News Digital. On June 28th, the Conservative Media Research Center scolded the network newscast for not covering the initial report on the day that it was published. The voicemail is a veritable smoking gun, but ABC, CBS, NBC have yet to report on the latest bombshell development. MRC Director of the Media Analysis, Jeffrey Dickens, wrote, "It's a stunning revelation that ABC, CBS, NBC have yet to air on any of their evening and morning shows because they're so in the tank for the Biden admin. I mean, where's the lie? No lie detected. I mean, what did we see in election time? Oh, if I'd have known about the Hunter laptop, if I'd have known about what was going on with that and something, that was the stuff that was initially released right before Election Day. If I'd have known about any of that, I probably wouldn't have voted for Joe." Excuse me. It's midterm time, and really, honestly, I think that a lot of this is going to point to the fact that a lot of other people have their fingers in the cookie jar as far as Hunter Biden goes. Let's grab one from our friends over at NPR. A 3-star general says he was suspended by the Army after appearing to mock Jill Biden. This is from Shawneen Miranda. And remember, NPR needs our money, comrade, to come and tell you about how communist you need to be in order to survive in the world. So make sure you hit that donate button, because it's not your money, comrade. It's our money. And we need to make sure that we can talk into quiet microphones and tell you what it is you're supposed to think about the world, about society, about the president, but not the evil orange president, but the good, blissful president who repeats the line. So, hit that donate button. NPR needs our money, comrade. Never Printing Reality, National Progressive Radio. Let's see what they have to say. The U.S. Army has suspended a former top spokesman for a consulting position and put him under investigation after he posted a tweet appearing to mock Jill Biden over a recent comment by the First Lady on the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. The tweet by retired Lieutenant General Gary Volesky came in response to a June 24th statement posted on the First Lady's Twitter account following the court's decision in Dobbs v. Jackson's Women's Health Organization. "Glad to see you finally know what a woman is," Volesky responded, according to the USA Today, which first reported the story. The tweet has since been deleted. His remark appeared to echo an exchange between Ketanji Brown Jackson and Marsha Blackburn during a confrontation hearing for Jackson in March. Blackburn pushed Jackson to define the word woman in regards to the transgender rights. Volesky was on a $92 an hour contract with the Army, serving as a senior mentor, advising top military officers and other personnel on war game strategy and other military activities, according to the USA Today report. The Army did not immediately respond to a request for comment, but in a statement to USA Today, spokeswoman Cynthia Smith confirmed that Volesky had been suspended pending the inquiry's outcome. Attempts to reach Volesky were not immediately successful. Volesky is a decorated, retired 3-star general who received one of the military's highest honors, the Silver Star, for his valor in Iraq. He also served in the Gulf War and the war in Afghanistan. He commanded the Army's I Corps, one of the top formations. He's also the commander of the 101st Airborne Division. So, one of the most highly decorated human beings on the face of the planet. Even he can have his career ended because he says untoward things about the Bidens. Now I understand that he is a government contractor, but regardless, one of the great freedoms of this country is to be able to criticize our current leading class, our current rulers. And where are we if you take that away? Like, seriously, where are we if you take that away? All right, we have got to talk about abortion access, because that's the other big one off of this. Some Kavanaugh stuff, some Biden stuff with that. But before we do that, I wanted to say why this is apparently important, because one of the biggest arguments that we have going on with this right now is where life begins. And we have some arguments from both sides. George Carlin made an apt point, and George Carlin was a pro-abort. He says he was pro-choice. He was a pro-abort. But he pointed out the fact that, 6 months after the baby pops through the birth canal, it's a 6-month-old baby. It's not a 15-month-old. You don't come out and you say, you do come out, you got a bunch of kids, and the old lady's pregnant. It's like, oh, we've got 3 kids and 1 on the way. Why don't you just say we've got 4 kids? If life begins at conception. But on the other side of that, and this is where we start to get down to the argument. Man, even in most blue states, man kills a woman who is all pregnant whatsoever. Man goes down for double homicide. Killing mom, killing baby. And this story from the USA Today: should a fetus count as a car passenger? Pregnant Texas woman says yes and fights the ticket from Camille Fine because she was driving reportedly alone in the high occupancy vehicle lane, except she was carrying. A pregnant woman in Texas plans to fight a ticket that she received for driving in the high occupancy vehicle lane, saying the overturn of Roe versus Wade means her unborn child counts as a passenger. The Dallas Morning News first reported the incident involving Brandy Batone, who got a $215 ticket for being pulled over on US Highway 75 South in June 29th. An officer peeked and asked, "Is there anyone else in the car?" Batone told the outlet. "I pointed to my stomach and said, 'My baby girl is right here. She is a person.'" An officer from the Dallas County Sheriff's Department told the Plano, Texas resident, "The law states that HOV lane users must have at least 1 passenger in the vehicle, and those passengers must be outside the body." And then I said, "Well, I'm not trying to throw a political mix here, but with everything going on with Roe versus Wade, this counts as a baby," she says. "This has my blood boiling. How could this be fair? According to the new law, this is a life." That actually brings up an interesting philosophical point, because again, we've got there is enough argument on both sides. I'm not going to weigh my personal opinions on this right now, but there's enough to say on both sides that either life begins at birth or life begins at conception based on regular standard rules that we use in our society. So it's an interesting way to go, and I'm actually kind of curious to see what happens with this and where this goes. This is probably one of the most interested I've been in a pregnancy story in my life. So we'll see what happens with that and where that goes. But with that, from WBAL TV, coming to NBC 11 via the Associated Press, President Biden signs an executive order to protect abortion access. From Sung Min Kim and Zeke Miller. President Biden signed an executive order on Friday to protect access to abortion as he faced mounting pressure from fellow Democrats to be more forceful on the subject after the Supreme Court ended a constitutional right on the procedure 2 weeks ago. Joe. Joe. had you read the decision, which I understand that's hard and long, you would understand that the entire point to this was to get people to have their representatives either on the state level or the federal level legislate on this rather than doing everything that they can to get around the legislation. This is the same thing with EPA. Why can't the legislature legislate? Now, I will confess that they did legislate, but they went way too far to even point where some Democrats can't agree to. Let's sit down. Let's have a debate. Let's have a discussion if you want to have this done on a federal level by representatives. My biggest curiosity, because this seems to be like the most important idea in all of history, according to the left. So why is the representative Congress trying so hard to keep this from going through the legislature? Either relying on Roe versus Wade for 50 years or now trying to rely on the executive branch again. Put the bill down. Try to compromise. Try to get it somewhere in between so Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema can get onto it. And some of the neocons, the jackoffs there, excuse my language, who have pressured their mistresses into doing the same thing, can get behind this as well. And then yes, some of you will have to go home and you won't get reelected because you voted on it. That's the reality of life. The actions he outlined are intended to mitigate some of the potential penalties women seeking abortions may face after the ruling, but are limited in their ability to safeguard access to abortion nationwide. Yes, that's right, because while it didn't make it illegal, because of the 10th Amendment, it defaulted everything back to the state level until such time where the national level can get their crap together and do something about it if, again, it's so important to them. It didn't outlaw anything. Biden acknowledged limitations facing his office, saying it would require an act of Congress to restore access to abortion in more than a dozen states, where strict limits or total bans have gone into effect in the wake of the Supreme Court's ruling, and even there, I think that's going to get challenged. About a dozen states are set to impose additional restrictions in the coming weeks and months. The fastest way to restore Roe is to pass a national law. Come on, Moloch needs those babies, man. Biden said. The challenge is to go out and vote. For God's sakes, there's an election in November. Vote, vote, vote. Mr. President, you can stop speaking now. Biden formalized instructions to the Department of Justice and Health and Human Services to push back on efforts to limit the ability of women to access federally approved abortion, medication, or to travel across state lines to access clinical abortion services. He was joined by Vice President Harris, HHS Secretary Xavier Becerra, and Deputy AG Lisa Monaco in the Roosevelt Room as he signed the order. His EO also directs agencies to work to educate medical providers and insurers about how and when they're required to share privileged patient information with authorities. An effort to protect women who seek to utilize abortion services. He's also asking the FTC to take steps to protect the privacy of those seeking the information about reproductive care online and establish an interagency task force to coordinate the federal efforts to safeguard access to abortion. You know what would be a really the fastest way to protect the privacy of people who are looking for this online? Repeal the Patriot Act. You know, that thing that President Joe has been deriding since it was passed by W. Man, would that go a great distance into fixing a lot of this. But hey, we don't have time for rational solutions. Since the decision, Biden has stressed that his ability to protect abortion rights by executive action is limited without congressional action, and stressed that Democrats do not have the votes in the current Congress to do so. Yeah, it's an election gimmick. So, we can probably skip the CNN one because we can see what's in this. But he also had more to say. Let's grab one from CNBC. Biden says Supreme Court is out of control and orders HHS to protect abortion access. From Thomas Frank and Spencer Kimball. Calling the U.S. Supreme Court out of control, President Biden signed an EO on Friday designed to bolster access to abortion in states that are banning it following the court's ruling 2 weeks ago to overturn the constitutional right to terminate a pregnancy. No, the constitutional right to privacy. Once again. Biden, flanked by Vice President Harris and Health Secretary Xavier Becerra, rebuked the conservative majority on the court for stripping U.S. citizens of fundamental rights that he said were protected by the Constitution, such as the right to privacy in health matters, like seeking an abortion. Well, again, if you'd have been private about it, we probably wouldn't have been having this conversation. We cannot allow an out-of-control Supreme Court working in conjunction with extremist elements of the Republican Party to take away freedoms over and our personal autonomy, he said from the White House. The president called out Justice Clarence Thomas in comments in concurring opinion, overturning Roe v. Wade that invited challenges to past rulings on contraceptive access, gay marriage, and other issues. What century are they in, man? Asked an incredulous-sounding Biden, who promised to veto any future Republican-led efforts to ban abortion nationwide, which I don't think that they would try to overstep this right now. Because they would be handing a 535-seat majority to Democrats if they did that, and I'm pretty sure they know that. The Affordable Care Act guarantees women free birth control and contraceptive counseling. Biden then signed an EO that promises to protect the safety of abortion patients and providers and access to the procedure through mobile clinics near the borders of states that restrict access to abortion. The order also instructs the DHS to issue a report within the next month detailing actions to safeguard medication abortion, ensure access to emergency contraception, and IUDs, and bulk up reproductive education. I think if we had more reproductive education, like, hey, if you stick this here, there's going to be a baby that comes out of this at some point in the near future, unless you've taken proactive steps to prevent that. I think that would solve a lot of these problems. I think a big part of the problem that we see here is a lot of people come out and look at this and say, consent to sex is not consent to pregnancy. Yeah, but it's the consent to the possibility. So take some steps before he blows it in you. Excuse crudity once again. So that we don't have to be having this conversation. Look, I'm the last human being to preach chastity to somebody. I'm the very, very last one to preach chastity. Because God knows I've been guilty of not being chaste. But I have taken proactive steps to make sure that none of my endeavors has resulted in a baby. For this reason. From the Blaze. WAPO fact checker cast doubt on Biden's story about a 10-year-old rape victim. Very difficult story to check. Now, they say that because of massive amounts of hormones from birth control being around there, they say that sometimes girls in single digits can start to menstruate. I don't know if that's true or not. But I was always of the understanding that if you are not old enough to menstruate, you are not old enough to get an abortion. I don't know if it's possible for a 10-year-old to get pregnant. It might be, and I might be completely off my rocker off of that. But it just seems to me like even if it is, that a cosmic series of events together have to come out and work out in the perfect way to do so in order for that to happen. So I'm sorry, but I don't buy this story. It seems like it's statistically possible, but just so unlikely. It's basically statistic noise. All right, but let's listen here, or let's read rather. President Biden spread a story of a 10-year-old rape victim who crossed state lines to get an abortion. However, some are questioning the veracity of the skeptically sourced story. During a gaffe-filled speech at the White House on Friday, Biden introduced an EO to attempt to protect access to abortion. President Biden also told the story of a 10-year-old Ohio girl who reportedly needed to travel to another state to get an abortion after she was raped. Let's listen.
10 years old. And she was forced to have to travel out of the state to Indiana to seek to terminate the presidency and maybe save her life.
Well, there's one of the gaffes too, because at this point, I think there are a lot more people that are looking at their grocery bills, and yes, even their gas bills, even though it's coming down, and saying, yeah, I'd like to terminate this presidency. White House Press Secretary, token diversity hire, was asked about the young girl who had purportedly been raped on Friday. White House Real Clear Politics correspondent Phil Wegman asked diversity hire if Biden's Department of Justice had launched an investigation into the 10-year-old rape victim's assailant. Oops. So I'll say this, anything to do with the DOJ, that's a legal component, Diversity Hire replied. I would refer you to the DOJ. I don't have more to share on the identity of this young woman or the question that you have asked me. The president spoke to the young woman just to show how extreme the Dobbs decision was and just how extreme it is now for the American public, American families, and then there's no exception at all. Thank you. Next question. Biden cited the Indianapolis Star article that was published on July 1st. The Indianapolis Star depended on a single source through the article, Caitlin Bernard, an Indianapolis obstetrician, gynecologist, and devout abortion advocate. On Monday, 3 days after the Supreme Court issued its groundbreaking decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, Dr. Bernard, an Indianapolis obstetrician, gynecologist, took a call from a colleague, a child abuse doctor in Ohio, the article claimed. The article highlighted how Ohio instituted a trigger law banning abortions after 6 weeks. Hours after the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, the article noted the girl had missed the cutoff by 3 days. The Indianapolis Star garnered international coverage, and the story was picked up by the Daily Mail, The Independent, The Guardian, The J Post, Maddow Blog. CNN weaponized the story to confront South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem on her pro-life opinions. On Saturday, the Washington Post cast doubt on the story. The only source cited for the anecdote was Bernard. She's on the record, but there's no indication that the newspaper made other attempts to confirm her account, wrote WAPO fact-checker Glenn Kessler. The story's lead reporter, Sherry Rodafsky, did not respond to a query asking whether the additional sourcing was obtained. Kessler pointed out, under Ohio law, a physician, as a mandated reporter under the Ohio Revised Code, 2151-421, would be required to report any case of known or suspected physical, sexual, or emotional abuse or neglect of a child to the local child welfare law enforcement agency, so Bernard's colleague would have had to make such a report to law enforcement the same time he or she contacted Bernard. Presumably, then a criminal case would have been opened. However, no law enforcement agencies on local, state, or federal levels had reported a report or an arrest of a rape suspect of a 10-year-old girl. Liberal-friendly fact-checker Snopes added, as of this writing, Bernard has not returned our request for an interview, and we've not been able to independently corroborate the abortion claim. Yeah, see, I do have problems with this. It's not just the biology, it's the fact that, yeah, it looks like there's really nothing that happened here as much as they come back to try and say that it did. talk about Kavanaugh. From Insider, Brett Kavanaugh was forced out of a D.C. restaurant by protesters amid anger at SCOTUS overturning Roe v. Wade. From Tom Porter, protesters held a demonstration outside of a Washington, D.C. restaurant after getting word that Kavanaugh was inside, forcing the Supreme Court justice to depart from a back door, Politico reported. Kavanaugh, who was among the justices who supported the recent Supreme Court ruling overturning Roe v. Wade, was having dinner Wednesday night in Morton's, a steakhouse. Excuse me. The restaurant confirmed to Politico that Kavanaugh and the protesters were there. According to a tweet from the shutdown D.C., which coordinates protests against the justices, they were demanding that the restaurant expel Kavanaugh. At that point, he left by a back door with a security detail. A source told Politico that Kavanaugh didn't see or hear the protests but left before dessert. Insiders contacted the group for comment. Honorable Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh and all of his other patrons at the restaurant were unduly harassed by unruly protesters while eating dinner at our Morton's restaurant, the restaurant told Politico. Politics, regardless of your side or views, should not trample the freedom of play of the right to congregate and eat dinner. There's a time and a place for everything. Disturbing the dinner of all of our customers was an act of selfishness and void of decency. Insider has contacted the Supreme Court for comment. Yes, and especially it's Kavanaugh. He's the one that seems to get the most of it. But, I mean, what would you expect? They didn't have the time to craft the narrative against Barrett. Which I don't know how, because she was probably one of the top picks for that seat. Even before anybody had heard the name Brett Kavanaugh. But we went on for 6 weeks listening to everybody hurl every insult, and the mainstream left-wing media coming out trying to tell all of us, hey, Kavanaugh's evil, and he's being put there by evil Donald Trump because he's a convicted rapist, and he needs to come back out here and get this rape conviction off. And they're sitting here talking about first-degree rape and all of this other stuff, and they can't bring a grand jury bring him in front of a grand jury. Yet still out here riling up their sympathetic base to be angry at this person forever. So he is going to wind up getting the brunt of all this. Let him eat cake. AOC reacts to Kavanaugh being forced out of restaurant by abortion rights protesters. From Axios, no author given. The Honorable and Venerable Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Socialist, Twitch, on Friday responded to reports that Justice Brett Kavanaugh was forced out of a restaurant by abortion rights protesters on Wednesday, sarcastically tweeted, "The least they could do, puppy, is let him eat cake, okay?" Other than that, that's a review, but let's talk about this here. What she's saying. Poor guy, puppy, he left it for a souffle because he decided half the country should risk death if they have to have an ectopic pregnancy. You liars! Oh my god! An ectopic pregnancy is not an abortion. Nobody in the universe thinks that a medical procedure for an ectopic is an abortion. Neither is a miscarriage. You liars. Within the wrong St. Lands, okay, puppy? It's all very unfair to him. The least they could do is let him eat cake, okay, puppy? In another tweet, responding to Fox News' Peter Doocy asking the White House press secretary, token diversity hire, if justices have no right to privacy after the incident, Ocasio-Chavez says, pretty sure they overturned that right 2 weeks ago, okay, Doocy? Senator Chris Murphy also responded to the incident saying, Political protest is okay when it involves storming government buildings and beating the hell out of police. Oh, liars, 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 liars. All of them are liars. But it crosses the line when you stand outside a steak restaurant, he added. Well, given that these same people have burned cities and historic buildings to the ground, yeah, I could see where a steakhouse would have some concern about things. I'm going to say something that's going to be very unpopular to both sides, but this coming from the fact that my hometown was one of the towns that was targeted by the BLM protests. Guess what? The Capitol building is still standing. So is every building around the Capitol building. So, I have no sympathy for these people. I really don't. Bob Weave tweets out. Bring this back up to the top here. Bob Weave tweets out, "You heard the White House. Please feel free to harass Democrats in public places like restaurants." Disclaimer, please don't do that. In spite of what the White House says, please do not do that. This is not official legal advice. But if you try to do this to a Democrat, you will be in prison for a very, very, very long time. You'll be an insurrectionist. So please do pay attention to that. The White House says that's democracy. Let's listen.
People should be allowed to be able to do that.
In a restaurant.
If it's outside of a restaurant, if it's peaceful, for sure.
Really?
Peaceful protest. Your first question to me was intimidation.
So these justices, because
and violence.
Protesters do not agree with an opinion.
Whoa. What did she just say?
Really?
Peaceful protest. Your first question to me was intimidation.
So these justices.
Your question to me was intimidation and violence. What?
Peaceful protest. Your first question to me was intimidation.
So these justices, because
and violence.
Protesters do not agree with an opinion that they signed on to, have no right to privacy, is what you're saying.
But Peter, this is people have the right to, this is what a democracy is. People have the right
to privacy?
Of course people have a right to privacy, but people also have a right to be able to protest peacefully.
Is that
peacefully? It's the intimidation and the violence that we condemn. People should be allowed to be able to do
really
peaceful protest. Your first question to me was intimidation.
Your question to me was intimidation and violence. Get off that podium. That should disqualify you for that job right then and there. That should be the end of it. But I mean, this is nothing new either.
We can't protect anybody. If you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome.
So I mean, the concept is nothing new. This was 2018 when this one came out? But again, I remind you, now, what Bob Weave said is technically, on the very, very outset of technicalities, correct. But don't do that, because you'll go to prison. They won't even ask questions. You might not even get a trial. If you protest a Democrat in public. You will have FBI agents swarming you so fast, you won't even know what happened. Mayor Pete got, and by the way, these, the AM radio thing, I've got to really watch my language because I was about to say very, very, very untoward words toward Midas Touch, but these jerks over at Midas Touch think that this is an absolute win. This is probably one of the worst takes legally I've ever heard. So we're going to listen to this. This is Pete Buttigieg give a master class on owning the conversation on Fox News. No, he gave a master class on lying. 100%, absolutely. So let's listen to what old Mayor Pete had to say.
Your husband tweeted after Justice Brett Kavanaugh left a Washington restaurant due to protesters. The tweet reads, sounds like he just wanted some privacy to make his own dining decisions. Is that appropriate, sir?
Look, when public officials go into public life, we should expect two things. One, you should always be free from violence, harassment, and intimidation. And two, you're never going to be free from criticism or peaceful protest, people exercising their First Amendment rights. Okay. And that's what happened in this case. Remember, the justice never even came into contact with these protesters, reportedly didn't see or hear them. And these protesters are upset because a right, an important right, that the majority of Americans support was taken away.
It wasn't taken away, and it wasn't a right either.
Not only the right to choose, by the way, but this justice was part of the process of stripping away the right to privacy. As long as I've been alive, settled case law in the United States has been that the Constitution protected a right to privacy,
and yet we still have the Patriot Act, by the way.
Has now been thrown out the window by justices, including Justice Kavanaugh, who, as I recall, swore up and down in front of God and everyone, including the United States Congress, that they were going to leave settled case law alone. So yes, people are upset. They're going to exercise their First Amendment rights. And as long as that's peaceful, that's protected. Compare that, for example, to the reality that as a country, right now, we're reckoning with the fact that a mob summoned by the former president
All right, well, let me follow up, Mr. Secretary.
attacked the United States Capitol for the purpose of overthrowing.
And they need January 6th because it's the only way they can come back and justify anything else, their protest. Oh, well, they're protesting. And again, you know, they're holding their BLM people into check. They're holding these protesters into check too. Can you imagine if this would have happened under the Trump presidency? I know, the shoes on the other foot and stuff like that. But can you imagine? There might not be a Supreme Court anymore. And every news headline would come out and say, this is Trump's America. No, this has nothing to do with January 6th. You're starting to run out of political capital with that too, by the way. From the New York Post, Morton Steakhouse blasts protesters who harassed Kavanaugh at dinner, from Callie Pattison. The Morton Steakhouse chain ripped a group of protesters who targeted Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh while he dined in its Washington, D.C. restaurant earlier this week, calling the demonstration an act of selfishness and void of all decency. The protesters, who appeared to be associated with a shutdown D.C. activist group, showed up outside the restaurant Wednesday night after receiving a tip that Kavanaugh was there. While the badasses at Our Rights DC and his own neighbors are gathered outside Kavanaugh's home, the justice seems to have snuck out for a swanky DC dinner, the group posted on Twitter. We got a tip from someone who spotted him around 7:40. DM us if you want to join him. We're sure he can pull up a seat. Meanwhile, student loan forgiveness activist Melissa Byrne tweeted the restaurant's phone number, writing, "Folks should call Morton's at," I'm not going to read the number out loud, even though, yes, it is public, I understand, and tell them it's gross that they welcome Brett Kavanaugh as a diner tonight. Men who take away women's rights should be shunned. A few moments later, Shutdown DC tweeted, "We hear Kavanaugh snuck out the back way with a security detail. Morton should be ashamed for welcoming a man who clearly so hates women." Politico, citing a person familiar with the situation, reported that Kavanaugh did not hear or see the protests outside and left after eating a full meal before dessert. While there was no interaction between the justice and the protesters, Morton's issued a statement condemning the incident. Honorable Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh and all of our other patrons at the restaurant were unduly harassed by unruly protesters while eating dinner at our Morton's restaurant, a representative told Politico. Politics, regardless of your side or views, should not trample the freedom at play of the right to congregate and eat dinner. There is a time and a place for everything. Disturbing the dinner of all of our customers was an act of selfishness and void of decency. Well, these people don't care because they can't afford to go and eat at Morton's. I'm curious. I want to see just if they'll show. I've been to one of these places. I just realized that. I've been to one because I saw that they had the one in Phoenix and that, well, Scottsdale, but and that triggered in my memory. Yeah, I've been to this one of these places and it is not cheap. Yeah, there's the one. Yeah, you're talking $20 appetizers here. $129 ribeye. $63.50 prime ribeye. Yeah, so these protesters cannot afford to go to this place. That's probably part of the reason they're angry. Let's see. Shutdown DC responded to the criticism by saying on Twitter, "No rights for us, no peace for you. Get effed Morton's." Wednesday's demonstration is the latest in a string of protests targeting conservative justices who voted to overturn Roe on June 24th. A majority of the protests have been held outside the justices' homes. Brett himself was the target of an assassination attempt last month when a California man was arrested near his home in suburban Maryland with a suitcase and a backpack that contained the tactical police vest, a tactical knife, pepper spray, zip ties, a Glock 17, and 2 magazines and ammunition. The suspect has since been charged with attempted murder of a Supreme Court justice. So, yeah, it's getting a little bit hotter as we go. And they've reacted to this now. Morton's has been flooded with phone calls and fake reservations after it said Brett Kavanaugh had a right to eat dinner without protesters gathering outside. A steakhouse chain is being flooded with phone calls and fake reservations over its defense of Associate Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh's right to eat dinner at one of its restaurants where demonstrators gathered outside to protest his support overturning Roe v. Wade. Yeah, they are shutting this down and filling this up, and it sounds like they're doing it all across the country, too. Morton's this week sent a memo to its restaurant managers telling them to brace for more backlash to its remarks defending the jurist. Politico reports Saturday Kavanaugh was one of 5 justices who voted to overturn Roe, the landmark 73 decision that legalized abortion in the U.S. and afforded a constitutional right to the procedure. I'm making you aware of this because there's a good chance that your restaurants will potentially have some people reaching out for a comment or making bogus reservations over the next few days, Crane continued. As I stated yesterday, our comment is always no comment. We don't respond, we don't retweet, we don't post on Instagram or Facebook, we don't do anything. Oh, I missed a paragraph here. Currently, we're experiencing a massive wave, trending at number 2 on social media right now. Negative response to our comment yesterday, as well as being bombarded at the local level with phone calls and fake reservations. I bet you it's going all the way across the chain, too. On Open Table, Scott Crane, the SVP and CEO of Morton's, wrote to the restaurant managers in an email obtained by Politico. Again, we do not insert our political beliefs at any time, not with an employee, not with a fellow manager, and most certainly not with a guest, he added in the memo. So it kind of looks like a restaurant manager maybe got into a little bit of trouble for this as well. And lastly, before we go on and talk about some of the other news in the story here, including Elon Musk, which is all the way at the bottom of this particular show. Lefty groups shut down DC, offering $200 bounty for intel on SCOTUS justices. I wonder who's paying that bill. From Rich Cowler. A left-wing activist group is offering $50 to anyone who gives the location of one of the 6 Supreme Court justices who voted last month to overturn Roe v. Wade. Shutdown DC said it would pay the bounty to anyone who shares a confirmed sighting of Justices Brett Kavanaugh, Samuel Alito, Clarence Thomas, Neil Gorsuch, and Amy Coney Barrett, or John Roberts. The group will pay a whopping $200 if the justice was still in the location where they were sighted after 30 minutes, according to a Friday tweet. I wonder who's paying that bill. Anybody? Twitter prohibits users from encouraging or calling on others to harass individual or group of people according to its rules and policies document. The platform hasn't yet commented on why the bounties don't violate the rules. I know! Ooh, pick me! I know why it doesn't violate the rules and policies. Shutdown DC's public bounty offer came after protesters affiliated with the group targeted Kavanaugh while he dined at a Morton Steakhouse in DC Wednesday evening. Kavanaugh was ultimately forced to flee the eatery through the back door. Oh, I know why it doesn't violate the rules. I bet you know too. Late Friday, Shutdown DC claimed that it received more donations than any single day yet, and sarcastically credited Tucker Carlson for its alleged windfall. Hours earlier, he tweeted that the group was trying to harass Supreme Court justices and that everyone should flood their account until they give up. So, that's what we see coming off of that. All right, liberals are furious at Biden's statement, deriding activist anger over Dobbs' abortion decision. Just go F yourself, from Carlos Garcia. The Biden admin lashed out at liberal criticism over its response to the Dobbs Supreme Court decision, and many reacted with furious anger online. Some supporters of President Biden have turned into critics after what they saw was a tepid response to the court overturning the landmark Roe v. Wade decision, despite having months to prepare after the draft decision was leaked. On Saturday, the admin released a statement addressing the furor. The president's been showing his deep outrage as an American and executing his bold plan, which is the product of months of hard work ever since the decision was handed down, White House Communications Director Kate Bedingfield said to the Washington Post. Joe's goal in responding to Dobbs was not to satisfy some activists who have been consistently out of step with the mainstream of the Democrat Party. Ooh! That is going to cost you some votes in November. Ooh! That was a shot across the bow. Oof. Ooh. Ho, 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 ho. That's going to cause some political turmoil right there. It's been to deliver help to women who are in danger and assemble a broad-based coalition to defend a woman's right to choose now, just as he assembled such a coalition to win during the 2020 campaign. Instead of quelling the rebellion, the defiant statement angered Biden critics on the left even more. Yeah, I'm sure. Remarkable statement from the White House defending its tepid response to abortion by trashing the left, replied progressive reporter Jordan Zakarin. Vote harder and go F yourselves. Just a reminder, if you've been frustrated with the admin's lack of response to Roe, that's because you're once again out of step with the mainstream of the party, so just go F yourself. And remember, vote November, responded screenwriter Josh Olson. Maybe they've been consistently out of step with the Democrat Party because UFs fundraised off threats to Roe instead of codifying it, and now many of them are facing second-class citizenship. They're not. At best, and a death sentence at worst. They're not. Tweeted health science writer Katie McBride. They'll tell anyone who cares about the issue to go F themselves in an attempt to gain credibility with Republicans who would sooner kill them than vote for them, read another angry response. A party that's worse than useless at everything, but being reluctant collaborators with Christian fascists. Some have seen the increasing public criticism of Biden as a sign that Democrats are preparing to tank a possible re-election campaign, instead choose a more responsive Democratic nominee for the 2024 presidential election. Oh, that is painful. Oh, that was painful. I felt that. And I'm pro-life, and I still felt that. Oh. Army medics. Enraged, Army medics TikTok video, ripping Roe vs. Wade, ruling goes viral. From Sam Raskin. Yeah, I think, especially on TikTok, where they bought the crap out of it. Anything can go viral. A U.S. Army medic ripped the U.S. Supreme Court's overturning of Roe v. Wade in a TikTok post that has attracted new attention. It was shared by right-wing internet personality Jack Posobiec over the weekend. In the 3-minute video posted June 24th, the day the landmark decision was released, a currently deployed woman, Army medic, fumes that U.S. treats women like second-class citizens. Let's listen. Appears not to be working. Let's figure out why.
I have thoughts. I have thoughts and I have questions. And
It happened. It happened. I woke up from a nap to this. On deployment. I woke up from a nap to this news. America is waking up to this news. I just extended my contract to continue serving this country a week ago. How am I supposed to swear to support and defend the Constitution and a country that treats its women like second-class citizens? How am I supposed to do that? How am I supposed to do that with pride? How am I supposed to do that with love and honor? How am I supposed to wake up every day and put on a frickin' uniform that says United States Army when the United States doesn't even give a rat's ass about me? It gives more of a rat's ass about the guns they're allowed to buy that kill the children that I'm forced to give birth to. Think about that. Oh, that's so funny. This effect on female servicewomen is an unintended consequence, which means that lawmakers and Supreme Court justices probably weren't thinking about this when they wrote their 213 some odd page report on it, right? They probably were not thinking about this consequence, but it is one. And it affects the very people that those lawmakers
Oh!
hold to a higher standard because they support the troops. Do you really, though? You really support the troops, even though this is going to greatly lessen the retention of women in the ranks of this military? You support the troops, even though you are going to ruin some women's careers? I'm deployed right now. And I am a medic, so I know how this works of, like, I have an extremely limited access to birth control. Women in the military are more likely to experience unplanned pregnancies. Women in the military are more likely to experience sexual assault. Where I'm at right now, you can't even get an ultrasound without traveling off base. You can't. It happened. It happened, ladies and gentlemen. And I signed that contract, so I will serve my country. But you bet your ass you're going to hear my voice, because I will not stop, I will not rest, and I will not be silent, because this is not an attack on reproductive rights. It is an attack on women in this country. 100%.
Have you ever tried not having sex? Furthermore, can we prosecute some of these guys who are doing the sexual assault? Is that possible? Can we do that? There's just so much wrong with this. But unfortunately, we're probably going to have to hear her voice for this. Again. Alright, let's get off of that topic, because we've spent an exorbitant amount of time off here. We actually might be able, before the Daily Ignoramus, to get through this last stretch of articles here. From the Hill. Wisconsin Supreme Court disallows absentee ballot drop boxes. Huzzah! This was breaking, by the way, while we were on air on Friday. So, I wanted to talk about this. I thought this was going to be top story today, by the way. Up until the speech that ended the world. From Scott Bauer of the Dissociated Press. Wisconsin's conservative-controlled Supreme Court ruled Friday that absentee ballot drop boxes may be placed only in election offices, dealing critical defeats to Democrats in the battleground state. The court did not address the question of whether anyone other than the voter can return his or her own ballot by mail. Election officials and others had argued that the drop boxes are a secure and convenient way for voters to return ballots. The decision sets absentee ballot rules for August 9th primary and the fall election. Republican U.S. Senator Ron Johnson and Democrat Governor Tony Evers are seeking re-election in key races, and both of them should lose their jobs, by the way. Both of those men should lose their jobs. I hope that Ron Johnson gets primaried. I really do. The court's 4-3 ruling also has critical implications in the 2024 presidential race, in which Wisconsin will again be among a handful of battleground states. President Brandon honked Donald Trump in 2020 by just under 21,000 honks, 4 years after Trump narrowly won the state by a similar margin. The popularity of absentee voting exploded during the pandemic in 2020, with more than 40% of the voters casting mail ballots, a record high. At least 500 drop boxes were set up in more than 430 communities for this election that year, including more than 24 each in Madison and Milwaukee, the state's two most heavily Democratic cities. Honkity honk, 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 honk. After Trump honked in the state, he and Republicans alleged that the drop boxes facilitated honking. Gotta be careful around that one, because that word will actually get you taken off. Even though they offered no evidence. Honk honk. Democrats, election officials, and some Republicans argue the boxes are secure. Conservative law firm Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty sued in 2021. The state Supreme Court in February barred the use of drop boxes outside election clerk offices in the April elections for local offices, such as mayor, city council, and school board seats. The court ruled on Friday. On the question of whether to allow secure ballot boxes in places such as libraries and grocery stores. See, the problem is they're not secure in those places. State law is silent on drop boxes, and the court said absentee ballots can be returned only to the clerk's office or designated alternative site. No, state law is not silent on drop boxes. State law says that absentee ballots have to be returned by mail or by hand, which that might actually go with ballot harvesting. That's a possibility, so we do need to pay attention to that, by the way. By mail or by hand to the clerk's office, and nothing else. The bipartisan Wisconsin Elections Commission told local election officials the boxes can be placed at multiple locations and the ballot can be returned by people other than the voter, but put that on hold pending the Supreme Court's ruling. Now, see, the problem with this, it's not the fact, and honestly, I do think under most circumstances, ballot, like a drop box, would be somewhat secure if it was outside a grocery store with probably a camera on the door or something like that. The biggest problem with this, and the biggest problem the left has with this, is that in spite of the fact that there was a world-ending pandemic going on at the time, honk honk, Madison, Wisconsin and Milwaukee held a Democracy in the Park event where they all gathered and crowded and made out and did all the stuff that the teens did, and brought their the ballot drops to a place where there is no chance to have any security, election officials, cameras, etc. Like, oh, we'll just come back and we'll have a big gathering. Oh, who cares about the fact that there's a world-ending pandemic going on right now? We have to defeat the evil orange man. So come out and party in the park and come and bring your absentee ballot. But it is beginning. And of course, the other side had to go back and overstretch off of it. From the Huffington Post, which I think this is like only the second or third time we've read from this source on this program. Trump calls on Wisconsin GOP to nullify elector votes, make him the victor after ballot box ruling. You moron. I've said this before. You could overturn the ruling in all 50 states and have a 50-state landslide for Trump right now. All the election officials across the country could watch 2,000 mules, decide that they have to decertify their electors and their elections, flip everything over and have 535 votes for Trump, and there is no constitutional mechanism to put him into office. No matter what you do at this point, the 2020 election is in the books, done and over. 2024 is the only thing you should be focusing on at this point. And use laws like what we just got, decisions like we just got. Focus for 2022 and 2024. There should be nothing else in your mind about 2020, ever. The past is in the past. If there was a constitutional mechanism to put the rightful victor into office for 2020, I would not be saying this. I would say, okay, yes, go keep running trying to decertify for the rest of time. There is zero constitutional mechanism to do that. None. As soon as Joe Biden put his hand on the Bible and says, I swear to uphold the thing, man. So help me that guy up there that I'm probably gonna meet soon. As soon as he said that, it was over. There was no constitutional mechanism to change the victor of the 2020 election. None. And the problem that I have with this, by the way, the fact that they're keeping going and trying to decertify the 2020 election, is right now you have a massive amount of momentum in states that honkety-honked and honked. You have a massive amount of momentum right now pushing forward to clinch wins in 2022 and 2024 that are somewhat cheapened by the fact that you can't stop thinking about 2020. Read briefly off of this one from Mary Pappenfuss. Donald Trump is now calling on the Republican Speaker of the Assembly in Wisconsin state legislature to snatch back the state's 2020 electoral votes to declare him the winner of the presidential race he lost in the wake of a court ruling on ballot drop boxes. He pushed the astonishing plan a day after he baselessly declared himself the winner in the state of Wisconsin Supreme Court, when the Wisconsin Supreme Court on Friday restricted the number of absentee ballot boxes in future elections. He again insisted in his message on Saturday that he is the actual winner by a lot in the battleground state. Trump claimed, "Brave American patriots already have a resolution on the Wisconsin Assembly floor to throw out Joe Biden's victory, okay?" And stopping the poll. There's no evidence of the vote was going to be everyone knows with fraud. You know. Okay. I don't care about that. But yeah. Dude, you have the momentum. Don't screw it up. But they're Republicans. They'll find a way to screw it up. Some good news for you. Wyoming senator says there's not enough Democrats to help Liz Cheney win the primary. Well, there are like 750,000 people in that state, and 747,000 of them are Republicans, so yeah, I could see that. From Dylan Burrows. Senator John Barrasso said Liz Cheney is unlikely to win her primary battle, claiming there are not enough Democrats to help her. Barrasso shared the comments on Fox News Sunday with host Mike Emanuel concerning Cheney's strong views regarding the events of January 6, 2021, and her role in the House Select Committee. Wyoming politics is very personal. It's face-to-face. It's town-to-town, Barrasso said. The travel I've done around the state, I think she has a lot of work to do if she hopes to win the primary. Bye-bye! Now, this is what's going to happen to Liz Cheney. And it's what needs to happen. Get all these old Romneys, Bushes, Cheneys. Get all these people out of here. Get rid of them. Get rid of every last one of them. Cheney has also become controversial primary target over her vote to impeach the former president following the assault on the U.S. Capitol. Trump has endorsed Republican challenger Harriet Hageman against Cheney in Wyoming's primary. There's really not that many Democrats out there, Barrasso told Emanuel. Even the chairman of the Democrat Party says there are not enough Democrats to do that. Last month, the New York Times reported that Cheney's campaign had sent mailers to Wyoming Democrats providing specific instructions on how people could switch their voter affiliation and vote for her in the August GOP primary. Good. Get rid of them. Get rid of all of them. And just to answer the question, what does that say about Wyoming Republicans? It's the fact that they see the R, the little R next to the name, and they see a name that they've known forever, and they put that little R down there and say, yeah, okay, R, are, I don't care who this person is, are. Basically the same way Democrats do. Let's listen to Barrasso for just a second.
Part of that partisan Manchin-Schumer proposal is expected to include, as you mentioned, bringing in about $1 trillion in revenue, with what we're told half expected to go towards deficit reduction, half towards energy and health care spending. Is there an economic argument to be made that now is not the time for that kind of spending?
Well, what we've seen is with the last big Democrat-only spending bill, it made inflation a lot worse. Democrats, the economists who worked for Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, said don't do it. It's going to bring out all this inflation. Joe Biden ignored their advice, denied that there was inflation. The American people know what they want. Families are really hurting all across the country. When I talk to people around Wyoming in terms of inflation, they're spending $100 a week more now than they were last year just to keep up. And they say, what do you really want? You want enough money to be able to fill your tank with gas. You want enough money that you can buy a week's worth of groceries, and you want to have enough money to pay the bills at the end of the month. But Joe Biden's not going there. Oh, no. He's going to higher taxes, more government spending, and attacking American energy. That is not the solution the American people are looking for, which is why only 1 in 10 Americans support the direction of the country right now.
Yeah, and it's hard everywhere. It really is. But, getting rid of some of that draw, some of the Cheney stuff, that'll help a lot, I think. Steve Bannon, speaking of the January 6th committee, Steve Bannon now says he will testify for January 6th committee after Trump's okay with contempt trial looming. From John Santucci, Will Staken, and Tal Axelrod. Steve Bannon, a former top advisor in Donald Trump's White House, recently told the House panel investigating the Capitol Selfie Fest that he would be willing to testify since Trump now says he won't cite executive privilege. In a letter on Saturday to the committee, obtained by ABC News, Bannon said that he would prefer testifying in a live public hearing after the former president had sent him a separate letter on Saturday, also obtained by ABC, waiving objections. Both the House committee and federal prosecutors who have sought to speak with Bannon have said the executive privilege claims have never covered him since the January 6th Selfie Fest took place long after Bannon left his post as chief White House strategist in 2017. Bannon previously defied a subpoena from the committee and is awaiting a trial on criminal contempt charges. His attorney wrote on his behalf in the letter this weekend that circumstances have now changed. President Trump has decided that it would be in the best interest of the American people to waive executive privilege for Steve Bannon to allow Mr. Bannon to comply with the subpoena issued by your committee. Mr. Bannon is willing to and indeed prefers to testify at your public hearing, lawyer Bob Costello wrote. Dude, don't do this. Now, as far as the January 6th committee goes, they are going to railroad him. They are going to hammer him. They are going to ask him questions to try to trip him up, to try to get him for perjury. And I really, really wish that there would be a cross-examination and have some lawyers that are more sympathetic to the former president be able to do some of the same things to the people who have already testified. But there we go. We're going to go see Steve Bannon on the January 6th committee. If you even watch the thing. I won't be. Elon Musk. Musk tells Twitter he wants out of the deal to buy it. Twitter says it will force him to close on the sale. Isn't it amazing? Because Twitter was doing everything they could to keep him from closing on the sale. Up until just now. From Claire Duffy, Brian Fung, and Rachel Metz. Elon Musk moved Friday afternoon to terminate his $44 billion deal to buy Twitter, the latest twist in a whirlwind process in which the billionaire Tesla CEO became the company's biggest shareholder, turned down a board seat, agreed to buy the social media platform, and then started raising doubts about going through with the deal. The next chapter in the saga is almost certain to be a court battle. Boy, would you love to be a fly on the wall for the discovery for that particular case. I would be. Oh man, would I love to be a fly on the wall for discovery. What do you mean? 20% of your users are botting. A lawyer representing Musk claimed in a letter to Twitter's top lawyer that he's ending the deal because Twitter is in a material breach of multiple provisions of the original agreement, which was signed in April, according to a regulatory filing on Friday evening. Musk has for weeks expressed concerns with without any apparent evidence, because it's CNN and they have to say that there are a greater number of bots and spam accounts on the platform than Twitter has said publicly. Analysts have speculated the concerns may be an attempt to create a pretext to get out of the deal he may now see as overpriced. After Twitter shares and the broader tech market have declined in recent weeks, Tesla stock, which Musk was planning to rely on in part to finance the deal, has also declined sharply since he agreed to the deal. I wonder what Twitter stock is doing today, by the way. It might just be me, but I'm pretty sure the shareholders are willing to let it go at a lower price. I'm just saying. I feel like that's going to be a possibility here in the future. The Twitter board is committed to closing the transaction on the price and terms agreed upon with Mr. Musk and plans to pursue legal action to enforce the merger agreement. Twitter board chair Brett Taylor said in a tweet on Friday, echoing earlier statements by the company that it planned to follow through with the deal. We are confident we will prevail in the Delaware Court of Chancery. Twitter shares fell nearly 6% after hours trading on Friday, immediately following the news. After ending the day down 5%, Tesla stock gained more than 1% in after-hours trading. Musk in May said the deal was on hold after he evaluated the number of spam and fake accounts on the platform, a reversal from his previous statements that he wanted to acquire Twitter to eradicate the bots on the platform. Last month, he directly threatened to walk away from the deal, accusing Twitter of breaching the merger agreement by not providing the data he says he needs to evaluate the number of spam and fake accounts on the platform. In response, Twitter agreed to hand over the fire hose stream of tweets. Still, Musk's lawyer alleged on Friday that Twitter has not complied with its contractual obligations to provide Musk with sufficient data, and said Twitter appears to have made false and misleading representations, upon which Mr. Musk replied when agreeing to the deal. I don't know. Twitter might be between a rock and a hard place, and that might be why they're trying to push this to go back through. I'm kind of curious to see where this goes. This has been probably one of the more interesting sagas that we've seen. And it's gone down considerably since we've been here. It was at 687, so it's gone down 0.1%. And now it's down 7% on the day. Ooh. Well, we'll continue to watch this and see where this goes. From the Daily Wire, Twitter hiring heavy hitters to go after Musk, according to a report. From Virginia Kruta, Twitter has reportedly brought in the heavy hitters to take on Elon Musk in a move designed to hold the billionaire entrepreneur to the $44 billion deal he wants to scrap. According to a report from Bloomberg published on Sunday, Twitter has hired Watchtel, Lipton, Rosen, and Katz, big names in the business merger law, to enforce Musk's original agreement to buy the social media platform for $44 billion. Musk has hired Quinn Emanuel, Urquhart, Sullivan, LLP, the same firm that represented him at least twice before, once in a 2019 defamation case, which he won, and is also in a still ongoing suit stemming from his 2018 attempt to make Tesla private. The Tesla CEO informed Twitter via his attorneys on Friday that he was not prepared to go through with the deal, as originally stated, saying that even though he had repeatedly asked Twitter to verify how many of the platform's accounts were fake/bot accounts, the social media giant had failed to do so. Well, right now, he could probably get away with going for $44.20 a share rather than $54.20 a share. Everybody would still make a buttload of money, and Elon would save 20% on the deal. So, get the popcorn because this is getting interesting. Alright, just a few more here, then we'll head out of here for the day. California law may backfire terribly as 70,000 independent truckers could be forced out of work, unleashing devastating supply chain misery. From Paul Saka. A California law threatens to unleash more supply chain misery and inflation on residents of the Golden State by forcing independent truckers out of the workforce. Assembly Bill 5 was introduced by former state assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez, a Democrat who signed into law signed into law in September 2019 by Gavin Newsom. AB 5 called for a person providing labor services for remuneration shall be considered an employee rather than an independent contractor, unless the hiring entity demonstrates the person is free from the control and direction of the hiring entity in connection with the performance of the work. The person performs the work that is outside the usual course of the hiring entity's business, and the person is customarily engaged in independently established trade, occupation, or business. Certain professions were exempt from AB 5, including insurance agents, healthcare professionals, investment advisors, realtors, barbers, and fishermen. However, truckers were not exempt from AB 5. AB 5 targeted independent contractors who were app-based delivery and rideshare drivers. Ironically, companies like Uber, Lyft, and Postmates were exempted from AB 5 after Prop 22 was passed in November of 2020. The trucking industry has been fighting the law ever since it went into effect and secured an injunction that prevented AB 5 from including independent truckers in January of 2020. California AG Xavier Becerra called on the U.S. District Judge Roger T. Benitez to reverse the injunction. The district court also abused its discretion in assessing the remaining preliminary injunction factors, erroneously concluding the plaintiffs established irreparable harm, despite the fact they waited over 19 months to seek injunctive relief and giving short shrift to the state's interest in addressing misclassifications of state employees. Becerra stated in March of 2020, this court should reverse. On June 28, the U.S. Supreme Court declined to review the case of California truckers battling against AB 5. So what this is in relation to is whether or not you're an employee or a contractor. Now, I do know a little bit about trucking, and yes, I mean, if you see owner-operator, OOIDA, or something like that on the side of the truck, that is a person who's an independent contractor. He makes his own hours, he takes his own loads, he picks his own loads, and sometimes, yeah, they'll go through and they'll make a LLC and get a broker on board, but for the most part, they go back out, they own the truck, they get on the dispatch board, they take the loads that they want, they work with what they do, and they get set to go there. But they don't have benefits, they have to go and provide their own benefits. Which seems to be what is going on with this. Now, it was the same thing with rideshare, Lyft, Uber, Postmates, stuff like that. Where they go on, they tap the app, they get everything done through the app, but they are as well an independent contractor, which means they've got to pay a higher self-employment tax, but also they have to be responsible for their own health care. And see, California, especially with single payer trying to loom and get itself over, doesn't want you to be able to go and have to go out and get your own health care or do something else like that. They want your employer to have to do that and force the employer to do so. If you don't have an employer, if you're an independent contractor, you're kind of exempt from that. And it does look like they're trying to tamp down on independent contractors to do so. But what this means is that a lot of, especially with truckers, where they don't even have to worry about getting a moving truck or anything else like that, are probably set to go back up, load up all their stuff into their 53-foot trailer that they own themselves, and go park their truck somewhere else in the country. Probably for a lot less money. And I would be willing to bet, in a retaliatory fashion, a lot of them would refuse to go out to California. I know that I have a friend who was trucking for a while. He's off the road now, but he refused to go into California. He would not take a load his dispatcher gave him if it went into California. Or he would not pick up loads from California. Which is weird because he grew up right next to California, so you'd think he'd be used to it, but it's just they have such stringent and strict laws, and the only time he's ever had a violation on his vehicle was in California. So I can't blame him for a second for it, but if you get 1 million plus, 2 million plus people doing the same thing, you start to cripple the supply chain, especially given the fact that so many of these ships are still waiting. 70% of these ships are still waiting to get into the ports out of California and have a truck to take the stuff away from them. That now has many, many more limited options as to who can haul that trailer out of there. So, this is hard. This will be hard on the American people. I don't want to see this happen because this will make it harder on the rest of us. But still, I kind of want to see the fruits of California's labor, the fruits of their problems, come out and bite them in the ass. From NBC, Highland Park suspect's father could have some responsibility in the attack, police say. From Melissa Chan and David K. Lee. Highland Park shooting suspect Bobby Cremo's father may have responsibility in certain circumstances for his son's deadly actions, police said Wednesday, while stopping short of tying the dad to any criminal culpability. The 21-year-old suspect was too young to get a gun permit in 2019 from the state of Illinois, but his father sponsored one for him despite previous threats by his son to harm himself and loved ones, authorities said previously. No, I don't think that is could have some responsibility. That is directly responsible. Of course, under the assumption that this is actually what happened. I still don't buy this story the way it's presented to us. Cremo was still under 21 in 2020 when he purchased the AR-style weapon allegedly used in Monday's attack, a purchase he could only make because his father sponsored his firearms owner's identification application. Under an affidavit Cremo's father signed, he agreed to be liable for any damages. There it is, he's responsible. If, of course, we come out into a court of law and find that Cremo is responsible, which I have a couple of doubts on. But if he signed the agreement, then he's liable. End of story. But there is so much else that's going on with this entire thing. I don't trust a word of what's going on here. And really, honestly, I can't take any of this at face value. Let's grab one here from NPR once again. And remember to hit that donate button because NPR needs your money, comrade. I mean our money. To come back out and tell you about all of the evils of capitalism. So send them money because capitalism is evil. You don't want that money for yourself, do you? It's not your money, comrade. It's our money. Why the Highland Park suspect represents a different kind of violent extremism from Odette Youssef. And we'll see what it is they have to say. But remember, they are never printing reality. They are National Progressive Radio. Let's see what they have to say. Moments after law enforcement authorities disclosed the name of a person of interest in the deadly shooting in the July 4th parade in Highland Park, Illinois, extremism researchers, journalists, and some members of the public rushed online to try to tie him to Trump. They discovered an extensive trail of digital activity believed to be linked to Robert Crimo III, now the named suspect in the mass shooting, but sifting through the troves of memes, photos, music, rap videos, and more, extremism experts agree there is no clear political or ideological motivation. NPR reported, while crying because they can't say, "But Trump!" Instead, many experts on extremism and technology say the suspect's activity fits with a still emerging profile of a mass shooter, rather than falling flatly into categories familiar with law enforcement and the public, such as white supremacists, radical Islamists, or anti-government militants. And you guys wonder why I think that the ATF is going to come storming through that window one time while I'm broadcasting. It requires an understanding of dark online subcultures that overlap and feed into each other in ways that glorify violence and foster nihilism. According to these, experts say that these online milieus have been tied to an increasing number of mass shootings over time. I've described this as a sort of mass shooter creation machine, said Alex Newhouse, Deputy Director of the Center on Terrorism, Extremism, and Counterterrorism at Middlebury Institute of International Studies. A lot of these communities are designed to spin out mass shooters over time, over and over and over again. Dude, you are so close. There is a community that's designed to spit out mass shooters over time, over and over and over and over again, but it is not an online culture. It's the Discord that mysteriously has a federal agent in it. I wonder how that could be. It bothers me that they don't see it. That's the problem. Alright. Can we get through these last 5 and rules of acquisition? I think so. In fact, I haven't got the alert that Daily Ignoramus is live yet either. Is Steven streaming today? Let's go look. Oh yeah, he is on. Alright, well let's get this wrapped up then. Exclusive, judge rules to unseal dozens of documents about Ghislaine Maxwell's personal affairs, including those that reveal her and Jeffrey Epstein's relationship with the Clintons. From Daniel Bates. A judge has ruled that dozens more documents about Ghislaine's personal affairs should be made public, including some that could reveal more about her finances and her relationship with the Clintons. You know what's funny about this? Absolutely no mainstream media outlet covered this. The Daily Mail is the only one, because I searched CNN, Fox, MSDNC, regular DNC, CDNC, The Hill, Politico. I searched all of them. Not a mention of this. The Daily Mail had it. So I guess we'll see what happens with that and where that goes. Some health news for you if you are in the Iowa area. Beach at Iowa's Lake of Three Fires to temporarily close after Missouri resident contracts a rare infection. From Dre Bradley. Oh, hey, now I got the alert. Hey, I must have talked about the dumb stream, and it showed up. The alert showed up on my phone, which is streaming to Instagram right now. The Iowa Department of Public Health revealed Friday that the beach at Lake of Three Fires will temporarily close due to potential exposure from a Missouri resident with a rare brain infection. Testing confirmed the presence of Naegleria fowleri in Lake of Three Fires is being conducted with the CDC and could take several days to complete, according to a press release. The Department of Health and Senior Services states that they're also working closely with the Iowa Department of Public Health on this case. Naegleria fowleri is a microscopic Well, speaking of Instagram, we're probably going to have to cut that down because I just got the 5% warning on my phone. So we got to shut that down. We got to power that one down. It's a microscopic single-celled free-living amoeba that can cause rare life-threatening brain infection called primary amoebic meningoencephalitis. Naegleria fowleri can be present in any body of warm fresh water, lakes, rivers, and ponds across the U.S., but infections are rare. Since 1962, only 154 known cases have been identified in the U.S. according to IDPH. No other suspected cases of infection are currently being investigated in Missouri or Iowa. So apparently this can happen anywhere, so I guess watch where you swim. Otherwise you might get the zombie virus. From the Blaze, a little bit of humor for you. I'm actually going to skip this one here because it's a blog. So, from the Blaze, Anne Frank had white privilege. Was a trending topic on Twitter. The outlandish claim was immediately torn apart. It's time to shut the internet down completely. From Paul Saka. A trending topic on Twitter was that Anne Frank had white privilege. Yes, that Anne Frank. The Anne Frank who was forced to go into hiding at age 13 because the Nazis were hunting Jews, and she later died in a concentration camp at 15 years old. On Saturday, one of the top trending topics on Twitter was Anne Frank. The reason that the now famous diary author was trending was because leftists claimed that Anne Frank had white privilege. The original tweet that ignited the outlandish debate was allegedly started by Twitter user Kaizoku Quad. The user's bio reads Marxist, humanist, and hedonistic alt-utilitarian. The bio also uses anarchist slogans, I want to eat the rich, and ASAB. Hold on, I want to make sure I say this carefully. Yeah, Anne Frank had white privilege. Bad things happen to people with white privilege also. But don't tell the whites that, the Twitter user wrote on July 8th. I don't think you know what that word means. The tweet has since been deleted. Another user added, yes, all white people are safe. No one is saying the Nazis didn't target white people, just that white people can hide behind their whiteness, whereas the Nazi USA, black people can't. Go tell black people the whites got it hard. Caleb Rimbor says, babe, wake up. They're calling Anne Frank a colonizer on Twitter again. The inflammatory tweets ignited a whirlwind controversy, and Twitter reactions tore apart the shocking assumption. So, what was the white privilege, by the way? I gotta answer that question. Or ask that question, rather. The ability to hide in an attic and play Anne Frank? Literally. To get drug off and killed in a gas chamber? What privilege is there? Clay Aiken says, I think it's time to shut the internet down completely. Even Nicole Hannah-Jones got into this. Nicole Hannah-Jones dismissed the preposterous notion. Anne Frank did not have white privilege in Nazi Germany. It literally wasn't considered part of the white race. So, that is some fun. All right, and the last one. A little bit of down news before we do the rules of acquisition, which I haven't done in 2 weeks because I didn't have Katie do that because she has probably no idea what the lore is behind any of that. But from Fox 2 Detroit. Detroit police investigate after 12-year-old shot by brother on city's east side. A 12-year-old boy was injured after being shot by his brother on Detroit's east side. The incident happened on Sunday afternoon around 2:20 p.m. in the area of Alsoy and Fairmount Drive. Police say two brothers, ages 12 and 14, were pushing an inoperable go-kart when a dog came out of the woods and approached them. The story they're giving us, the dog came out of the woods, 14-year-old went to retrieve an Uzi-style weapon under the seat of the go-kart and shot his brother in the ankle. Detroit Police Assistant Chief Charles Fitzgerald said. Investigators recovered the weapon behind a nearby garage. The child is in stable condition. He was shot in the ankle. A pretty tough little kid. He was wandering around like nothing was happening. He was taken to St. John's. Hopefully he is going to be just fine. Police say the parents are cooperating with the investigation. At this time, police do not know where the child got the gun. How a 14-year-old can push a go-kart down the street with a weapon, an Uzi style, this isn't a handgun, it's an Uzi style with an extended mag, terrifying, said Fitzgerald. Why is anybody carrying around an Uzi right now? Like, I don't care about the automatic weapon side of things. I think the NFA should be abolished. My concern is, do you have any idea how much 9mm costs right now? Keeping that thing fed is an investment in and of itself. Like, when Steven and the Zeds and I were all going on the shooting range, the place that we went to, you could rent automatic weapons, and it was a 9mm Uzi style was the one that they give you. And, you know, you hear the burst off the thing, and then you just realize that you hear $20 just flying away through the air. But that's what I have for that. And while I make, at the last part, the concern about spending money, with that we are going to move on to the rules of acquisition. So the last thing we do on Monday is we read one of the Ferengi rules of acquisition. The Ferengi, of course, being the most capitalistic race in all of Star Trek. And me being an ultra-capitalist, I feel that I must live by these rules in order to be a better capitalist. So, they have written down, according to their religion, 431 rules as to how to interact in business with each other and other races around the galaxy. Probably about 157 of them are actually in canon that we can see. And we go down and we analyze one once a week to see both how it's used in canon and how it can be used in our real lives. Because while it is an exaggerated form of capitalism, there is some truth in some of the things that they have to say. So, we read last week the 88th rule of acquisition. Per Ferenginar, satisfaction is not guaranteed, the DS9 novella, but there is a second 88th rule of acquisition. By the way, there are two 89th rules of acquisition as well. So, according to The Poison Chalice, a DS9 novel, the 88th rule of acquisition is vengeance will cost you everything. Now, one of the things that we can look at off of this is what's happening politically, also what's happening with Twitter. There's a very good chance that if this deal does not go through with Twitter, that Tesla stock can tank because it makes Elon look like he's a bad business leader. I don't think that he is, but there's still the chance. But also that he could be out there and become one of the richest human beings on the planet, even more over so than he already is. And it does look like there is some sides to this as well that are going on with this. But politically, I think it's more important to come back and look at this. I wanted to use the business line off of this. There are a lot of people out there who claim that the reason that Donald Trump ran for president, and I could actually see some of this as well, although I think some of this was staged, and he has talked about running for president since the 80s. But the reason that he did so, and he did so as a Republican, not because they'll listen to whatever Fox News tells them to. It's more because, and a lot of people are pointing this out, the White House Correspondents' Dinner where Barack Obama specifically called out Trump. Now, Trump did very, very well through the presidency. He overspent, I will give him that. He lost my ability to vote for him the third time because of the overspending and some of the reactions to do that. I cannot do it the third time. But what I say can cost you everything. After being called out so publicly, there is an idea and a thought and possibly a reality that the only reason he ran for president was to take revenge on Barack Obama for doing this. But now what does this cost him? To go out here, to be in the highest office. Donald Trump is one of the few presidents in history to lose personal wealth while in office. His name has been dragged through the mud. His kids will never be able to just run off the family business like they would have been able to before. Outlets, TV shows, the History Channel that used to love the guy now hate him and want him to die, want to cancel him. And I bet you I would not be able to go back and find the episode of Top Gear that had him on there. They're cutting him out of movies. He has lost everything off of this. He still has the support of the American people, but the people that he rubbed elbows with for 50 years no longer want to have anything to do with him. They either buy the line that the mainstream media comes out and tells them to, or they're doing something symbolically to make sure that they still have customer bases on their own. I try, and I used to be one who would take revenge on people when I was younger. I try not to do that anymore. Because I know that the thought consumes you. It takes you, and you can't rest until you've had all of your revenge, until you've had your vengeance on the person who has wronged you. Forgiveness is divine. In fact, it was a very, very wise green man in an orange bandana that told us forgiveness is divine, but never pay full price for late pizza. I'm not saying not to try to get back at somebody for something. I'm saying to be careful about it. Because it can, and in some points, as the rules of acquisition tell you, it will cost you everything. You will put your entire heart and soul, and sometimes your business is at risk, to go and right the person who wronged you. And at what point do you have to ask the question, is it worth it or is it not? But with that, we head out of here for the day. Change up the track and let's go. All right, so we are going to head out of here for the day. I'm doing a little bit of a volume adjust. Like I said at the top of the show, we're going to be doing some upgrades and some updates as far as the technology goes, because I didn't realize, and again, I think it's just because, we use the thing for 3 hours every day. I do think that it is a part of the microphone itself is going bad too. So we'll probably, we'll crank up, we'll spend a little bit of money. I've been using the thing for 4 years now. So we'll spend a little money that'll be coming up here if you want to donate to the cause. Links are in the description. We're going to try to move away from Buy Me a Coffee just because of the convoluted process that is put into place. But if you want to help out, you can find ways to do so. You can support on Twitch. That's always helpful. Otherwise, we'll be out of here for the day. I'll be back here later on today, and we'll do some more Fallout 3. I'm not sure what time yet. Hopefully, we'll get on here by 5:30 once again and go and throw a few hours of that. Plus, there's going to be a call-in show for the Porch Boys after that, so pay attention to that as well. We'll see what's happening with that. Otherwise, we're going to head out of here for the day. We will see you here next time for more contemporary, more news, more headlines, and more of what's going on around the world. We will see you then, and until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.